Vikes Now, I am Dustin Baker. We are kicking it 5 weeks away from free agency. The draft is 6 weeks after that. The Vikings roster will begin to take shape relatively soon. I think before too long, we'll start to see leaks or intel about whether Sam Darnold is coming back, whether he's going to be franchise tagged, or, hey, Vikings will re-sign Byron Murphy. We'll start to see those things. That'll be the next step in the offseason, in my estimation. Of course, there's a Super Bowl this weekend. I believe the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl 31-27 because I am not wagering or predicting against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I did that last year thinking the Ravens would uproot them, and that was foolish. I'm not doing it again until they lose. So that's my formal Super Bowl prediction. Chiefs 31, Eagles 27, in a thriller because that's what the Chiefs do. Kind of like the 2022 Vikings, but a legitimate. So last week, hopefully you tuned in, Josh Fry offered his predictions for the offseason. And I wanted to get mine on record with the caveat that these are bold offseason predictions, bold predictions from any Vikings analyst or writer or NFL pundit are designed to be out there, to think a little outlandishly, to really get your wheels turning about what could be, especially after the Dallas Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers for not pennies, but they should have been able to add what they did. Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-rounder. They should have been able to add about 3 or 4 more first-rounders onto that to make the deal legitimate. I digress. This is not NBA now. It's Vikes Now. So let's go through my 5 bold predictions for the Vikings offseason. Give me 1 second here. I got to get them pulled up. All right, here we go. My first one, and I think I might have stole this from Yannick Eckhart, who is a guest of the show, one of my close lifelong friends. If I did, apologies, but it was a damn good idea. I believe the Vikings' bold prediction will trade twice before they make any draft picks on April 24th, I believe it is. The team currently holds the 24th pick. What I envision is a trade down, to 28 or 29, and then we're all kicking at draft night saying, oh, sweet, all right, hopefully they get Walter Nolan, or hopefully they can get Siobhan Revell. But then they'll trade again, down to 31 or maybe even to the second round. And what that does is take the 4 draft picks that we think the Vikings will have, including the compensatory pick from Kirk Cousins' exit, and nudge that bitch up to about 6, and then probably by the draft's end 7, because we all know Kwesi usually likes to trade like a fiend, although he didn't do it as much last year. So I believe that for sure 1 trade will be on the horizon, but probably 2, because that will enable you to likely get an extra 3rd or 4th round pick, which the Vikings don't have because they traded what a YouTube commenter said, the Garden, for Dallas Turner last year. So jot me down for 2 Adolfo Mensa trades before the Vikings pick at all on draft night to kind of domino or steamroll that thing and get some of these picks back. And not for nothing, when I thought the Vikings would go 7-10 this year, and at that point probably end up with the 8th or 9th pick, I thought they would do this then during, August, and when I was formulating the win-loss prediction, which would have turned into a juicy domino because you can get a lot for the 8th or 9th pick in the draft, and then you trade a second time, boom, you're looking at multiple sweet picks, but the Vikings were too damn good for that prophecy. So Kwesi trades twice before making any selections whatsoever. Number 2 is Javon Holland signs with the Vikings. And I say this for one fundamental reason. I think Cameron Bynum is a fine football player, but I don't know that he's going to be worth the price that he asks for. Now, I don't have any intel that suggests that he's going to, be really funky and ask for $15 million or something, but I think his notoriety is propped up by his lovable persona, his celebrations, and I think he is a pretty darn good safety, but I don't think he's as good as Javon Holland. So, because Javon Holland was drafted by Brian Flores in 2021, his final year with the Dolphins, I think the Vikings take the money that they would have otherwise in a normal offseason invested in Cameron Bynum and say, you know what, Cam, we're not going to pay you your $13, $14 million, whatever it is you might ask. We're going to give that to Javon Holland, who is a top 3 safety when he's at the peak of his powers. He had kind of a down year this year, but I'm going to guess that would be rectified if he got back with Brian Flores' tutelage. So my bold prediction is not anti-Bynum. I do like Cameron Bynum, and I'll be happy if he is re-signed. But I think the Vikings look at this strategically and say, who do we think is a better football player, Javon Holland or Cameron Bynum? And I think even you, most ardent Vikings fans, would probably say Javon Holland, and therefore they will invest the funds in Holland and not Bynum. That is bold prediction number 2. Number 3, and I came up with this one before yesterday's news, and now I feel even more emboldened that it can be correct. Kevin O'Connell reunites with Cooper Kupp. If you watched the Eagles and Rams game 2 weeks and change ago, the Eagles almost collapsed and gave that thing to the Rams before Matthew Stafford just airmailed the pass out of bounds, and that was that. Nobody cared. Other Vikings quarterbacks would have been skewered for such a pass, but nobody cared because it was Matthew Stafford. After that game, Cooper Kupp was in front of a microphone and sounded very skittish about his future with the Rams, as if he knew something was coming. Either they were going to try to trade him or he was going to be cut. He was pretty damn melancholy by Kupp standards. And bada bing, fast forward to this Monday, on the same day that Myles Garrett asked for a trade, the Rams evidently told Cooper Kupp, we will be trading you. Kupp is, 32? 31, 32? And I think he will end up with the Vikings as a bold prediction as the WR3. And I come at this from 2 very obvious angles. In 2021, Cooper Kupp won Offensive Player of the Year with Kevin O'Connell as his offensive coordinator. Wouldn't you know it, the Rams also won the Super Bowl, which was the springboard event that got Kevin O'Connell to these Vikings. Now, I know that Cooper Kupp is not in his 2021 phase. However, a WR3 doesn't need to be the offensive player of the year. He needs to be better than Jalen Nailor, better than KJ Osborne, and then better than the goofs that the Vikings used to employ at WR3 during the Mike Zimmer era. So I think this is the time, because we're overdue, that the Vikings say, you know what, we have this connection between Kevin O'Connell and Cooper Kupp. They did glorious things 3-4 years ago. Let's pair these guys. I don't know how the money will work. I know Kupp is expensive, and they'll have to renegotiate his deal or backload it a little bit. But the Vikings have $60 million in cap space as of right now before restructuring anything. So I believe Kupp will land with the Vikings as a bold prediction because of his connection to Kevin O'Connell. And quietly, Jordan Addison will probably be suspended to start the 2025 regular season. Now, I think this thing is scheduled to go to an actual trial, which is kind of strange this day and age. Like, you'd think Addison would plead out, and that would be that. But if Addison is suspended, we're looking at the prospect of weeks 1, 2, and 3 being Justin Jefferson, Jalen Nailor, and then whichever other guy they might sign for WR3, probably with a rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. And I think to get the McCarthy era off with a bang and to make up for Addison's would-be 3-game absence, you have Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, can play WR2 in a pinch, like he has now behind Puka Nacua for a year and a half, 2 seasons. So it just makes all the sense in the world. The money is the only hurdle, that the Vikings finally get serious about a WR3, not just some guy we hope does cool things every once in a while, but a real WR3 caliber guy to finish out his career. Cooper Kupp to the Vikings checks out. There are angles here, folks. So give me that as my third bold prediction. Number 4, I thought long and hard about this one because it's a question I'm asked frequently by Vikings fans in the email inbox and even friends from high school, is where does Sam Darnold land? Now, I believe the Vikings will continue to say that they like Sam Darnold, we want him back, and we'll be like, all right, well, they like him. And I think they're doing that to drive up his would-be asking price for a franchise tag and trade. Way back when this started, when Darnold was playing quite well, and the theory came up, hey, the Vikings can tag and trade this guy. I was skittish to believe in it because franchise tags are never received well ever by the player, and it doesn't feel like the Vikings' usual way of doing business, pissing off the player to make themselves, a little bit more advantageous or to get more draft picks. But then when Darnold showed up and delivered 36 total touchdowns, 4,319 passing yards to only 12 interceptions, you entered the territory of, would the Vikings be stupid? Would it be malpractice not to tag and trade him? And I think that's where they're probably at now in an exploratory sense, like what can we realistically get for this guy? Now, I do not know if the Vikings will actually do that. I think ultimately I will predict that they'll let him walk to free agency and get whatever compensatory pick that they will get. And my fourth bold prediction is that Sam Darnold ends up with the Seattle Seahawks. I pulled all of the Vikings territory writers last weekend about, hey, where does this guy end up and how does he get there? And like 80% of them said the Raiders. And I don't disagree wholly because you have Pete Carroll there, probably his stability to win now. Pete Carroll seems like the kind of guy that would roll with Sam Darnold. And the Raiders pick at number 6, which is really shitty in this draft for a quarterback. And this draft feels more and more like the 2022 draft when Kenny Pickett was the only prize compared to last year when there was, 5 or 6 dudes that we talked about, in lead up to the draft. So, although I don't totally discount the Raiders theory, I think that is the second option. I think that when the Seahawks decide, you know what, we are done with Geno Smith, they can save up to $30 million. I think they can turn that around, flip that into Darnold, maybe backload the deal a little bit, and then boom, they watched him in living color beat the Vikings beat them with the Justin Jefferson late fourth quarter pass. So they saw that Darnold has the juice, and it feels like a Seahawksian fix to add Sam Darnold and get rid of Geno Smith and let him go yonder to be a QB2. So my wild card bold prediction is not the Raiders, not the Giants, certainly not the Jets, and the Steelers. I think Darnold's a little too expensive for the Steelers. Give me Sam Darnold to the Seattle Seahawks, where he can reunite with Clint Kubiak, who was the offensive coordinator in 2023 of the San Francisco 49ers, which is where Sam Darnold was the QB2. I think all of the dudes from the Shanahan coaching tree believe that Darnold can ball, except in the playoffs. And I think Kubiak will vouch for Darnold. So give me that connection there. And then finally, I think I've whispered this on the show already. My final bold prediction is that Harrison Smith returns for year number 14. I would not have predicted this if Brian Flores was hired as head coach by the Bears, Jaguars, or Jets, the 3 places he interviewed. I'd probably say, you know what, that's it for Hitman. But I think because Flores is back, Harrison Smith said after the playoff loss that he had the best time of his life in general this season, probably because the defense was so damn good. And Harrison Smith does not suck. He is not washed, folks. I think Harrison Smith, and this isn't like, hey, I want him to come back for vibes. I think he is still a damn good starting safety. And if I saw that he was diminished, I would be one of the first to say, it's probably time to hang it up, but I just don't see that from Harrison Smith. And although he was rather emotional after, weren't we all, after the Vikings confoundingly lost to the Rams, I think he knows the end is very near, could even be this offseason. But when those raw emotions of losing to the Rams burn off, and then bada bing, you see Brian Flores is back, I think Harrison Smith owes it to himself to cross paths with J.J. McCarthy for one season and, obviously pencil me in as a believer in McCarthy to become the QB1 for the Vikings in September. So, recapping, Harrison Smith back for season number 14, bold prediction. Seahawks sign Sam Darnold, not the Raiders. Cooper Kupp becomes a Viking because there is the Kevin O'Connell connection. Javon Holland instead of Cameron Bynum in free agency, and then because the draft capital piggy bank is teensy, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah trades twice before even making any sort of pick on draft night. That's all I got. We'll be back with Josh Fry tomorrow, I think, to go over in depth some of the team needs, to review those. Skol, baby.